four biogeochemical cycles, or the four chemical cycles of life, okay? So we're going to start with the easy one, the water cycle, and you have this picture in front of you. For each cycle, we're going to look at a few factors, okay? The first thing we're going to look at is their biological importance. Why do we care about them? Why are we looking at these in biology, okay? Water's probably pretty easy. Water really is life. It's essential for all of life. That's really why it's important, okay? And then we're going to look at their available forms, okay? How are they available biologically? Biologically available forms. We're going to see with some of them that maybe they're around, but they might not be available, okay? For most part, it's liquid water is our biologically available form, okay? Ice is not really useful to most of biology. And then we're going to look at their reservoirs. Where is most of this stored? For water, the main reservoir is the oceans, okay? About 97% is in the ocean. And then you have about 2% in ice, which is actually, but it gets stuck there, okay? And then you have 1% in freshwater form, so rivers, lakes, streams, groundwater, things like that, okay? Clouds, all that kind of stuff. And then the key processes that are involved with the water cycle are going to go in the last box, okay? You're going to have the three key processes are evaporation, water evaporating from like a lake into a cloud, condensation, which is going to be happening up in the clouds, and then finally it will fall to the earth in the form of precipitation. Not spelled out right. Okay. The other thing that you're going to have is transpiration, which is really what it's how plants can move water through their body, okay? Transpiration by plants moves water. And then you're also going to have surface and groundwater returns water to the ocean. So these are kind of ways that water can move around. So surface and groundwater return water to the ocean. Okay, probably the easiest cycle to understand. Now let's look at the phosphorus cycle, which actually might be probably the hardest cycle to understand just because it's the least talked about in other classes. And you have a picture of the whole process over there, okay? So in the phosphorus cycle, let's look at it first. Remember, it's biological importance. Why do we care about this cycle? Okay, so for its biological importance is that phosphorus is in nucleic acids. So it's in your DNA, okay? So you need it for that. Sort of important for life, I would say. It's in your phospholipid bilayer. So it's in every cell, every living thing cell. And ATP, okay? Sort of key things in your life. So that's why you need it in there. It's also a mineral in your bones and teeth. Also probably pretty important, okay? So those are probably pretty important biological things for life. How is it available? So let's look at its biologically available forms. It's only available in what's called its inorganic form of phosphorus, or I'm sorry, a phosphate. Okay, so when it's like this, when it's in its PO4 form, or it could be, you could even do phosphite, which is very rare, and it's in the PO3. Okay, but either of those forms, phosphate is actually PO4. Okay, and you can get it through all kinds of different ways. One of the main things is that it's in fertilizers, actually. reservoirs for it. Where is this normally found? So how do we get this into our cycle? Okay, the major reservoir is rocks from marine environments. So sedimentary rocks down at the bottom of the earth. That's what this is showing right here. Okay, and there's also some in soils, dissolved in the ocean water. And then, of course, you get a lot of your phosphorus actually comes from, not from, you're not eating dirt to get phosphorus, but you're going to be eating something, so other organisms. Some of the key processes that are involved in how you get and how you transport or how the phosphorus cycle goes around is weathering of rocks. So as rocks kind of break down, you're going to start to get more and more phosphorus. Some leaches into groundwater and surface water, and then gets into the ocean. Leaches into groundwater and surface water. That's what it's showing right here in the cycle. And into ocean. Okay. Some is taken up by producers. When you talk about plants absorbing nutrients, that one of the nutrients that they might be absorbing is phosphorus. And then some is returned to soil by decomposers. Remember how we talked about how decomposers return nutrients? This is a nutrient that we're talking about. Okay. Now let's look at the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is the one that is obviously most affected by global warming, and the one that we always talk about when we talk about global warming. So let's kind of go back to what's the importance of this. So the biological importance is the first thing. You are made up of carbon. Every living thing is made up of carbon, okay? That's what it means to be an organic molecule, is a carbon-based molecule. It's a little bit different than what an organic food thing is. We can talk about that in class. Organic molecules are carbon-based. So all of your DNA, your lipids, your carbohydrates, and your proteins all have carbon in them, okay? So in the biologically available forms, there's actually a few, okay? We need autotrophs. We need them to convert CO2 into organic molecules that heterotrophs can use. So organic molecules to be used by heterotrophs. Okay, so that's how it becomes available to us. We can't use the carbon dioxide, but the autotrophs can. Where are their reservoirs? Our atmosphere. Okay, it's turning into a huge one. But so there's lots of places. Fossil fuels stored in the earth. Soil has some of this stuff. Sediments have some of the carbon reservoirs. Oceans, living things have carbon in them, right? And then obviously the huge one is the atmosphere. Okay. And then what are some key processes that are involved in this, in the carbon cycle? One of the main key processes, obviously, photosynthesis. Okay. Because they take the CO2 out, and then CO2 is returned to the atmosphere by cellular respiration. Because when we breathe out, we take in sugars and molecules and things, and we take those in and use them for energy and breathe out carbon dioxide. Okay. And then also volcanoes and vents and things like that, and burning of fossil fuels. This is where we kind of mess with the carbon cycle. Add CO2 to that, back to the atmosphere. Okay. The last one is the nitrogen cycle. We already know from our study of bacteria that bacteria play a huge role in the nitrogen cycle. Okay, so let's look at why do we need nitrogen? What's the biological importance? Okay. It is found in amino acids, which are the building blocks to proteins, okay? And it's also found in nucleic acids, the building blocks to DNA and RNA. Sort of important things, okay? It's also it can be a limiting plant nutrient, meaning that if there's not enough of it around, plants aren't going to be able to grow, okay? But plants really require it for growth, okay? Let's look at the biologically available forms. There's actually a few different ones. So how is it available for us to use? Plants and algae, so photosynthesizers, can use ammonia. I'm just going to write the carbon compounds, but you should know what these names are. And nitrate. Ammonia and nitrate, okay? Bacteria, some different bacteria can use ammonia. They can use nitrate, and they can also use nitric oxide, okay? Animals can only use organic forms, so they can only use ones that are already incorporated as amino acids or nucleic acids. Okay? Where are the reservoirs of nitrogen on planet Earth? So let's look at some of the reservoirs, okay? Most of it is in our atmosphere. But it says nitrogen gas. It's 80% actually of the atmosphere is nitrogen gas. Some is in soil and sediments of like lakes, oceans, rivers, all those kinds of things. Okay. Some is dissolved in the water. And you can actually see that as the nitrate form. You can actually measure that in waters. Okay. And then where it really matters for us is nitrogen is stored in living things, because that's how we get it. Okay. And then the key processes, the things that are involved in getting and cycling nitrogen around and turning it from one to an next. The main key process is it enters the ecosystem. So it goes from the atmosphere into the ecosystem through nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation done by bacteria. Okay. So that's how it enters the ecosystem. Then you have these processes of turning it into different things after that, okay? Ammonification is by bacteria. These bacteria become real important here, okay? And that's done by decomposing organic nitrogen. Nitrification, which is bacteria again going from NH4 plus to NO3, and then denitrification, which I bet you can guess who's going to do this, bacteria. They use the NO3 and they actually release nitrogen gas back into the atmosphere. Okay, so that's the entire nitrogen cycle. Super important to get our amino acids and our nucleic acids.